Good afternoon, everybody. I am Reverend Owekeme Johnny Peter, the coordinator of Nonviolence campaign in Nigeria. Nonviolence approach in conflict resolution is a means of fighting back with the laws. It's a means of fighting the higher authorities within the premises of the law. Nelson Mandela of South Africa did it. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. did it in the United States of America. To say nonviolence approach in conflict resolution was only active in the late 50s and 60s, that it's not going to work these days, that things are different. It's a failure to understand Dr. King's message and its relevancy. Nonviolence approach in conflict resolution is always a fresh method to address all human conflicts and injustices in the society. Today, Nigeria is facing calamity, economic and security challenges, which started right from the year 1966 up to date. We are still struggling to find a balance in Nigeria. And nobody is talking about the root cause of these problems. Nobody is talking about the root cause of these problems in Nigeria. On TV stations, radio stations, on paper, leaders are busy talking about managing the problems. No one is talking about solving these problems. Problem is not to be managed, but to be solved. If you are managing the problem, please be aware that one day that problem will overgrow and it will consume you. This is the problem of Nigeria. NSAS was just a signal to Nigerians that if this illegal constitution continues, Nigeria will burst into another civil war. Nigeria is not a democratic country, either you like it or not. Take it or leave it. Nigeria is operating a unitary system of government that was being introduced by the military regime in 1966. If you check properly, this economic and security challenges started right from 1966 when military hijacked the system. And what was the reason why the military hijacked the system? It was because of the discovery of crude oil in the southern region. Now let's start to analyze. Democracy was introduced in Nigeria in the year 1954, which was through federalism. The Northerners were controlling groundnut oil. The Easterners were controlling palm oil. The Westerners were controlling cocoa. Then in the year 1956, the first crude oil well was being discovered in Olebri. And the well was being drilled successfully in that year. But further study revealed that since 1901, crude oil has been discovered in Olebri, that the commercial development of the oil wells only take place in the year 1956, which means before amalgamation of 1914, crude oil has been discovered in Olebri. So the discovery of crude oil in Nigeria called for corruption. And the Nigerian leaders start to sensitize Nigerians, knowing very well that a valuable commodity has been discovered in the land. And the people who possess this commodity are not much in the politics as are them, which are the Southerners. So the Nigerian leaders began to sensitize the people through non-violence approach, through rallies, campaigns, symposiums, newspaper publications, radio broadcasting, TV shows. They begin to sensitize the people. The more reasonable reasons why we must gain our independence as Nigerians, why we must govern our affairs as black people in Nigeria. So later the case was being taken to court in London. And finally, Nigeria got her independence in the year 1960. In the year 1966, 6 years later, the Prime Minister, Alhaji Tafawa Balewa, was being kidnapped. And 2 days later, General Anguyi Ironsi from the east declared himself the military head of states in Nigeria. Then Isaac Adakaboro from the south looked into the future and see the suffering of his people. And he said, we must take a bold step against this. Isaac goes back to his community, left school, who was under federal government scholarship in the University of Nsukka. He left school and goes back to his hometown in Kayama and declared the Niger Delta People's Republic and waged war with the military government for 12 days. Isaac was being captured later and was condemned to death in prison. While Isaac was still in prison, disagreement arose. Because along the line, Anguyi Ironsi also was being assassinated and Gowon take over the throne. Then Ojukwu said, why will Gowon take over the throne if Anguyi is dead? He is the senior soldier, and even in the military and in age, is senior Gowon. Why will Gowon be the one to take over the throne? This becomes the problem of Ojukwu and the Nigeria government. So, the Igbo leaders became a threat to the Northerners. While Gowon was on throne, he began to demote every other person from the top offices of Nigeria. And they begin to install the Northerners in place. They begin to install the Northerners in place. And this led to the declaration of Biafra. And Ojukwu finally declared Biafra in the year 1967, while Isaac was still in prison. When the Nigeria government looked into the Biafra map, they found out that the Biafra map is covering almost the whole of the Niger Delta, the southern region. They said, this crude oil that makes us to fight and struggle for independence is what you want to go with. We will not allow you. This led to the deadly civil war of Nigeria, which lasted for about 30 months, close to 3 years period. Then after the civil war, civilians take over power. And they check the constitution and see that the unitary system that was introduced by the military is in favor of the federal authority, is in favor of the politicians. Since the constitution is within their power, they said, let's announce to the people that democracy has taken over, while we rule with the same laws of unitary being introduced by the military regime in 1966. So, the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria that is ruling us today is a continuation of the unitary system of government that was introduced in 1966 by the military government. This is the problem of Nigeria. What is democracy? Democracy is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. A definition by Abraham Lincoln, a one-time president in the United States of America. In democracy, there is true federalism. In true federalism, there is decentralization that gives 50% autonomy to the state and local government to control their resources and pay 50% revenue to the federal authority in order to enable them take care and monitor the public affairs. And what are these public affairs that stabilize economy? You can think of road, light, refineries, railways, hospitals, schools, airlines, airports, and the civil servants. Now, this unitary system reduced the dividends of the state to 13%. In a responsibility of 50%, you are now giving me 13%. How will I take care of that responsibility that is supposed to be taken care with 50%, with this 13% you are giving me? And if I may ask, what are they using the remaining 35% of the state? What are they using it to do? When our refineries are not working, when we are not having constant electricity, when we don't have good road, when there are no railways. Look at our security personnel. They are looking very tattered. The soldiers, the navies, the police. When these people are not being taken care properly, why won't they be corrupt? This is the problem of Nigeria, and nobody is talking about it. As you can see, I am for non-violence. I come in peace. Non-violence approach in conflict resolution was introduced to the Niger Delta in the year 2009 through the Niger Delta Presidential Amnesty Program. And this brought us to talk about the amnesty program. Amnesty was not introduced to the Niger Delta. It was not offered to the Niger Delta because the Nigeria government want to solve the problem of Niger Delta or because they love the Niger Delta. No. It was a calculated effort by the federal government to conquer the armed struggle of the Niger Delta in the law court using the court order, so that anyone under the amnesty program cannot come out to bear arms against the nation again. That if you do and they capture you, you will live by the mercy. That's if they decide. Either they execute you or they give you life imprisonment due to the amnesty deal. But if really the Nigeria government really want to solve the problem of Niger Delta, after the acceptance of the amnesty offer by MEND, the government was supposed to go back to the drawing board and implement true federalism, which was resource control. That was the true cause of the Niger Delta agitation. The federal government knows very well that without true federalism, on the long run, the Niger Delta youth will surely go back to armed struggle because the economy of Nigeria will only get worse. But they still refuse to implement true federalism, which is resource control, because of their selfish interests. This is the problem of Nigeria. Now it has gone beyond Niger Delta struggle. It has become a problem of Nigeria because this unitary system that was being introduced in the year 1966, that still continues from 1999 till date, is already threatening our peaceful coexistence in Nigeria as a country. As I said earlier, the EndSARS protests that took the life of our young, vibrant Nigerians recently is just a signal to let us know that if this illegal constitution still continues, it will lead us to another civil war. And if the civil war of Nigeria, as at 1967, was brutal like that, and peradventure, if war breaks out in Nigeria today, it will be worse than that of Liberia. It's high time we Nigerians put hands together and we fight through cause, demanding for the manifesto of democracy to reflect in the Nigeria Constitution. Even as unworthy as the 1999 Constitution is, it still stated in Chapter 2 that the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall be a state based on the principles of democracy and social justice. And in Section 14, The same constitution still stated that sovereignty belonged to the masses, meaning the indigenous ethnic group are kings over their ancestral lands and resources. But today, those laws are not working. If you say Nigeria is a democratic country, where is decentralization that allows states and local government to operate freely? We are celebrating Democracy Day. Politicians know what they are doing. And we Nigerians that are complaining, we are following them, celebrating, jubilating. When they take over power, they fool us. Ruling us with the same military decrees and deceptions, deceiving us, and we are still following them. Today, I'm calling on Nigerians. Let's come out in our numbers. Support non-violence campaign in Nigeria. Let's demand for our legal rights as democracy demand in federalism, resource control. 4 years from now, politicians are coming back to deceive us again, to fight ourselves again. As you can see, Nigeria is facing tension. It's heading to the rock as a ship. The rock is called civil war. In the north, they are hesitating. We call them Boko Haram. We call them S-men. We call them terrorists. We call them bandits. In the east, they are agitating. We call them Biafrans. In the west, they are agitating. We call them Oduduwa People Republic. In the south, they are agitating. You call them whatever name you like. Now, this negative, illegal constitution is setting confusion between our midst. We are fighting ourselves. Why politicians are busy accumulating wealth. That's why I say the violence act of the ignorant youth is being benefited by the guilty leaders. So let the youth stay out of violence. Let's not give the federal government the authority, the privilege to brand us with those illegal names. Militants, bandits, terrorists, Boko Haram, hoodlums, and all sorts of illegal names. If you think you are fighting for the betterment of Nigeria, and you want Nigeria to be a home, your comfort zone. A home is not a place where we live. A home is a place where you find your comfort. If you want Nigeria to be your comfort zone, join hand with non-violence campaign. Let's fight corruption from its roots. Let's demand for change of constitution. Let democracy be implemented in Nigeria to settle our case. This is the problem of Nigeria. Let's stop pretending. I remain my humble self, Reverend Owekimi Johnny Peter, the coordinator of non-violence campaign. Non-violence campaign will unite for the betterment of Nigeria. Like and share this video. And if you have anything to contribute, comment. We are coming up. Our country, Nigeria, shall not be broken. Thank you.